Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Aaron. Rescue workers continue to search for survivors of that massive mudslide in Washington state Saturday. At least 8 people are dead and more than a dozen missing. As the clock keeps ticking, searchers are losing hope of finding anyone else alive. Rescue crews work through the night, digging through mud at least 15 feet deep in some areas.
The conditions are very, very muddy. In places, it is still like quicksand. Other areas are they're just not accessible at this time.
Authorities believe the slide was caused by recent heavy rain. At least 30 homes were destroyed or damaged, buried when the side of the mountain came crashing down.
Total devastation. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It reminds me of what a tornado looks like when it's touched the ground.
There really is no stick standing in the path of the slide.
The mud covers about 1 square mile. Some victims were able to get out on their own. Sean Wright quickly went from being a victim to a first responder when he heard people crying for help.
Screams. People sounded. At one point I heard a baby scream.
Wright and several other people were able to use chainsaws to get the mother and baby out of the remains of their home.
Where we got her was just debris. You couldn't tell anything was houses. It was just all debris.
Crews have not been able to search the entire area of debris, only the areas determined to be safe enough to move across. And officials say they're still in search and rescue mode right now, but as more time passes without finding anyone alive, it will move to a recovery mission. Turning to the situation in Ukraine, where there is growing concern of a military conflict. In Crimea this weekend, Russian troops took 2 Ukrainian military bases by force. They're holding more than 80 Ukrainian Marines captive. Russian annexed Ukraine last week, a move the U.S. and the European Union don't recognize. President Obama is in the Netherlands meeting with European leaders about the crisis. They've leveled sanctions against Russian officials and banks, but with 20,000 Russian troops massed on the Ukrainian border, even that response appears to have little impact.
Here is Vladimir Putin with a failing Soviet franchise, and when he can't win the hearts and minds of his neighboring nations, he uses energy extortion, mass gunmen, and barbed wire. Now, he is a bully, and we've got to call him for what he is. But this notion that some sanction is going to stop a former colonel in the KGB from his ambitions of a Russian empire is naive.
They are growing. We don't know what Putin has in his mind and what would be his decision. That's why the situation becoming even more explosive than it used to be a week ago.
Even a top White House official admits Russia could attack Ukraine. On CNN's State of the Union, a deputy national security advisor said Russia might invade and there's nothing the U.S. can do to stop it. A Chinese military plane spotted several floating objects in the Indian Ocean in the search for missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. The crew reported a white, square-shaped object in an area identified by satellite imagery as possible debris from the missing airliner. Australian officials are also analyzing radar images provided by France, which shows potential floating debris. Meanwhile, the search for the Boeing 777 has been missing since March 8, and it's expanded to parts further south in the southern Indian Ocean. One of the busiest sea shipping routes in the country is closed today after 2 ships collided in the Houston Ship Channel. The collision breached an oil tanker, spilling hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil into the water. Officials closed the busy waterway, and as many as 60 vessels have no way to get in or out. Cleanup crews are struggling to contain the spill, and the tar-like fuel has already spread to 12 miles offshore. Environmental groups said the foggy weather isn't helping in the cleanup efforts. Well, bad news for drivers. Gas prices are going up another 5 cents per gallon. That's a total rise of 26 cents in just 6 weeks. A survey released Sunday said that a city in Montana had the lowest average at $3.18 a gallon, while Los Angeles had the highest price at $4. According to AAA, gas prices typically go up this time of year as refineries undergo seasonal maintenance. But tensions surrounding the crisis in Ukraine could be causing concern over crude oil prices. Well, you might think drones are used only for military purposes, but companies all around the world are using them for other purposes, from real estate to relief organizations. Many are seizing the moment, putting no limits on the possibilities of drones. George Thomas has that story.
Drone technology is flourishing, and with it comes an eager marketplace. Photographers, real estate agents, movie makers, and others are embracing the flying devices. Last week, in fact, a drone was used to capture pictures of that East Harlem building explosion. And here, pictures taken by a drone are being used to help sell this luxury property overlooking the Hudson River.
It has a unique view of the house and the surrounding areas. It really is very impressive.
Team Black Sheep is one of many video companies to use drone technology for some of its films. But even as popular as drones are becoming in the U.S., the Federal Aviation Administration actually bars their commercial use.
The rest of the world is already doing this. Okay, this is not something that we're just the only ones. So it's going to happen, with or without us.
That's because commercial drones are already being used in countries where authorities say the aircrafts present little threat if operators follow safety rules. One company, Matternet, has a project in Haiti to deliver medicine to isolated mountaintop villages.
And they're like totally disconnected from all medical services. It's impossible to get vaccines reliably to them. It's very hard to give them access to consumer goods, and it's extremely hard for them to get their goods to market.
In Japan, helicopter drones have been spraying crops for 20 years. South Korea launched a similar program 5 years ago, and Australia recently started using them too. The German delivery company DHL is testing a packet copter drone that could be used to deliver small, urgently needed goods to hard-to-reach places. It's easy to see much of the world has jumped on the drone bandwagon, but many say FAA rules are leaving the U.S. lagging behind. George Thomas, CBN News.
Chaos in Michigan as a battle rages over same-sex marriage. Friday, a federal judge struck down the state's constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. Immediately, hundreds of gay couples obtained marriage licenses, and some even held marriage ceremonies. However, Michigan's Attorney General immediately filed an emergency request to put the judge's ruling on hold, and a court of appeals issued a temporary stay of the ruling Saturday, leaving those couples in legal limbo. The Supreme Court hears arguments challenging the contraception mandate in Obamacare this week. It's one of the biggest religious freedom cases to hit the high court in years. Justices will hear from family-owned companies who say they shouldn't be forced by the government to ensure birth control if it goes against their personal beliefs. The largest company involved is Hobby Lobby. The Obama administration says if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the companies, it would prevent women from making decisions about birth control based on what's best for their health. In the United Kingdom, new guidelines for Sharia complaint wills could open the door to recognizing Islamic law there. That's according to The Telegraph, a British newspaper. The new guidance produced by the Law Society will allow lawyers to draft Islamic wills that are compliant with the UK law, even though they discriminate against non-Muslims, women, and adopted children. Such wills could give a woman a lesser share of an inheritance than a man, prevent unbelievers from receiving any inheritance, and exclude adopted children as legitimate heirs. Critics of the guidelines warn they're a step toward establishing a parallel legal system in the UK. Coming up, Christians are under attack worldwide, but it's worst in the Middle East. Why are Muslim nations harsher on Christians, and why does the world remain silent? CBN reporters in Jerusalem are among dozens of journalists working for foreign agencies in Israel that received threatening text messages over the weekend. The senders identified themselves as Al-Qassam, the military wing of Hamas. One message warned, Al-Qassam has chosen you to be the next Shalit. Be ready. Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier, was abducted and held in Gaza for 5 years. Another message read, if Gaza is attacked, then the life of the Zionists will be hell. The Foreign Press Association said the recipients had apparently come from a carefully selected database set up by the military wing of Hamas. Gunmen opened fire on a Kenya church Sunday, killing 3 people and wounding at least 10. It happened outside the coastal city of Mombasa. Officials say 3 attackers entered the Joyland Church during services and began shooting. Nearby police responded swiftly, but the killers got away. Muslim-Christian tensions are high in Kenya, and many churches and Christian ministries have been attacked in recent years. Kenya borders Somalia, where the Islamic group Al-Shabaab is persecuting Christians. Well, Christians are persecuted for their faith around the world, and some of the worst mistreatment takes place in Muslim nations. Gary Lane explains.
More people around the world embrace Christianity than any other religion, and Christians are the most persecuted. They face beatings, imprisonment, and even death. And it's not just happening in Islamic countries.
Radical Islam could fall off the planet tomorrow and Christians would not be safe.
It's coming from governments and religious militants seeking to violently advance their radical ideology. For example, last month in the Buddhist nation of Sri Lanka, a mob led by radical Buddhist monks attacked 2 Christian prayer centers, smashing windows and destroying Bibles. North Korea is the worst offender. For the past 12 years, it has topped the annual watch list of persecuting countries. Overall, it's Muslim countries where Christians face the greatest risk.
In 36 of the top 50 countries on our world watch list, Islamic extremism is the main driver of persecution. It's very dangerous to be a Christian in a country where Islamic extremism is prevalent.
CBN News contributor and author Raymond Ibrahim calls Muslim persecution of Christians the great elephant in the room that few wish to address. Our George Thomas spoke with him recently.
And CBN News contributor Raymond Ibrahim joins us now. He's the author of Crucified Again, Exposing Islam's New War on Christians. He calls Muslim persecution of Christians the great elephant in the room that few wish to address. Great to have you back on the show. Listen, 82% of the persecution of Christians in the world today is being committed by Muslims. What does that tell you?
It tells me a lot of things. It tells me, first and foremost, as you said, the great elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Organizations are willing to talk about the persecution of Christians, but they don't want to connect the dots, which you just did. 82% are happening. And when you think about it, it's not just the Muslim world. It is the countries that are our allies, Saudi Arabia. It is countries that are rich, Kuwait. It is countries that are poor, Somalia. It is countries that have Islamic regimes, Iran. It is countries that are considered moderate, Malaysia. It's happening in all these countries. And so you have to say, what is the common denominator in these different countries of different races, nationalities, and cultures? It's Islam.
What is the difference, Raymond, between the persecution that happens in these Muslim countries and that you listed and non-Muslim countries like, for example, North Korea and China?
First of all, persecution is persecution. So they're all suffering and they all require help and prayer. But there's a light under the tunnel for North Kuwait and for all these communist nations, because 82% is Islam, the other 18 or so are communist nations. And the light under the tunnel is the fact that, let's say USSR was Soviet, it was persecuting Christians.
Sure.
You got rid of the regime, that just changed overnight, now it's a Christian nation again. And so you get rid of the North Korean dictator who has a cult of personality, it could overnight end the persecution. You go to the Islamic world, this is not the case. In fact, you get rid of the leaders, it gets worse. The U.S., unfortunately, 4 of the countries that the United States has gone in to liberate and bring democracy to are today considered extreme persecutors of Christians, even though they weren't before the U.S. interfered. And this is Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and ongoing Syria. All these countries are now severe persecution, and these are the countries that we are bringing help and democracy and freedom to.
We have an American pastor, Saeed Abedini, who has been held in an Iranian prison since 2012. The Obama administration, could have easily made his release as a condition of the deal that they've made, that we have made on the nuclear program. Why didn't this happen?
What's sad about that is, we're talking about an American. So if that's what Obama does towards an American who is, unjustly imprisoned for being a Christian, it just goes to show you exactly why Obama doesn't care about indigenous Christians.
Recently at the National Prayer Breakfast, President Obama made it a point to talk about Saeed Abedini, Kenneth Bey, an American Korean who is languishing in North Korea. Clearly, he said human rights, religious freedom is a pinnacle of U.S. foreign policy around the world. We stand up for these. But yet the actions, the words something, the actions are different.
It's just politics. I mean, he'll say the words, but like you're saying, the actions don't manifest themselves.
Raymond Ibrahim's book is called Crucified Again, Islam's New War Against Christianity. He's also a CBN News contributing editor, and you can find his blog on our website, cbnnews.com. Up next, meet the preacher whose church is being held in a nightclub. The unconventional pastor of Hillsong Church in New York City is next. The film God's Not Dead made a strong debut this weekend, landing at number 5 at the box office. It earned $8.6 million, though it aired in only 780 theaters nationwide. The other films in the top 5 appeared on more than 3,000 screens. God's Not Dead earned a per-theater average of nearly $11,000. That's the second highest in the top 5. Well, he has been called a Pentecostal powerhouse. Pastor Carl Lentz is drawing thousands of followers each week to his church in the heart of the Big Apple. Many of them would never darken the door of a traditional church. They include the famous and the not so famous. Take a look.
Every day and say, Lord, here I am, use me. I know you're not looking for perfect people. You're looking for available ones, so I will go.
Every Sunday, thousands flock to Hillsong Church in New York City. But this church is in no way traditional, complete with strobe lights, concert-like worship, and an unconventional leader in Pastor Carl Lentz. The 35-year-old pastor looks more like a rock star than a man of the cloth, donning leather jackets and jeans instead of a suit and tie. His message is also out of the box.
Our church is awesome. I love it. I always say it's extremely imperfect, and that's why everybody fits in. One time somebody was like, I don't come to church because there's a lot of hypocrites. I'm like, well, we got room for one more.
Hillsong is located inside a nightclub and attracts everyday New Yorkers, musicians, NBA players, and young celebrities.
Our church is about trying to get people to experience the power of God as fast as possible. So you're not going to come in and see a lot of stuff. The only thing that changes people's lives is the power of the Holy Spirit. So young people love it.
Pop icon Justin Bieber, who's been making headlines lately not for his music but for his run-ins with the law, visited Lentz's church last year. He even tweeted about the service, saying, "Love to my guy at Carl Lentz NYC for that amazing sermon at church this morning. Love you, man. I broke down today." There are now reports that Bieber is planning to be baptized by Lentz's church.
I love Justin. He's a good kid. He's trying to figure this out. His behavior, he's figuring it out. Like, what should we do? You tell me what we should, like, people who are like, is he even a Christian? With Justin, I always tell people, I'm like, grace does not, grace and acceptance does not mean approval. I can accept you as a human being and not approve of your actions. That's how we've been loved. We love because we were first loved. With Justin, it's not my job to be his police officer or his regular. It's my job to be a friend to him, and that's all I am.
Lentz co-founded the megachurch 2 years ago as an extension of the main Hillsong Church in Sydney, Australia. But Lentz, who has nearly 70,000 followers on Twitter and 59,000 on Instagram, is quick to point out that his church is open to people from all walks of life.
There happens to be people who are famous, so we should be reaching them. There's also people who are not famous. We should be reaching them. So when it comes to celebrities, I always say, yeah, but celebrities are people last time I checked.
But the hipster pastor is not so quick to address moral issues like abortion and homosexuality. During an appearance on Katie Couric, Lentz was asked if he had a moral imperative to speak publicly about controversial issues, to which he answered no, because we try to be like Jesus. He told CBN News he doesn't want to make blanket statements about morality, preferring instead to have conversations that can build bridges.
Homosexuality is something right now that people are really looking at, and I would rather talk to these people on my own and walk it out like I would anybody else than make a big, bold statement in the papers where somebody who's already ostracized. I hate it when I talk to someone who has a preconceived notion of what I'm going to say or do, and I don't think it's fair. So I just respectfully decline to answer it in most forums.
For that and more, he has critics, which he says help make him better.
I don't have it all together, and there are areas of my life where I'm trying to do better as well, and I'm trying to handle criticism better. I'm sensitive, and I often want to be understood, which is a problem if you're a Christian. I'm going to take it on board, and I'll do my best to walk with it humbly and say, like, I never write criticism off. Most people who criticize us, they simply do not know us.
With a growing church and his name among the stars, many ask if Carl Lentz is the next big thing in Christianity. To that, he simply says,
I know me, so I don't think so. I don't think we need another big thing. I think we had a big thing, which was the cross on Calvary. I think that's the only big thing needed. I think I'm a small thing used by a big God, and we'll let people say what they want to say, because if you start living off the praises of people, you'll die from the criticism as well. So we live right in the middle.
And Lentz is always pointing out that his words are from the Bible, full of grace, full of love, and God's using him mightily. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Finally, we all know dogs are a man's best friend, but another animal is becoming an increasingly popular pet across America, micro pigs. And due to their rise in popularity, Rhode Island has just issued its first license to have one of the miniature pigs as a pet. That license went to Victor Quinoyan. Not only does he have a micro pig, he also owns a store called My Pet Piggy. Quinoyan says having a pet micro pig can be similar to having other kinds of pigs. Micro pigs have to be taken for walks, can be trained to use a litter box, and even learn to do tricks.
Micro pigs are extremely affectionate. They love you. They want your undivided attention all the time. It's tough to treat them like a dog or a cat because they're just so close to you, and so you got to teach them like a kid.
And even though they're called micro pigs, some experts caution the animal can actually grow to be between 20 and 40 pounds. They are kind of cute, though. Well, that's going to do it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Tell us what you think about the stories you've seen. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. If you join us next time, have a great day.